The weekend was approaching. I was walking home from work and remembered that I had promised to come to my mother-in-law's dacha for the weekend. I dialed my mother-in-law's number and said that I would come, as promised. My mother-in-law was happy to see me, as she needed an assistant to help her with the potatoes. She said she had been expecting my help all week, and that it would be nice to have company at the cottage. The next day I was at my mother-in-law's house from early morning, and it was Saturday. The fresh morning air was invigorating and the sun was just beginning to rise above the horizon, casting a golden light over the fields. My mother-in-law, Martha, was in the kitchen making breakfast. When she saw me, she smiled warmly and walked over to me, wiping her hands on her apron. "So, how's work going?" she asked, her voice full of curiosity. "Yeah, it's good," I replied. "And that Kate is working again on Saturday?" "Yeah, same as always," I replied, shaking my head slightly. Kate was known for her dedication, and it was no surprise that she was working all weekend again. "Sit down, we'll have breakfast," Martha said, gesturing to the table. I sat down at the table, and she placed a plate of scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast in front of me. The aroma was appetizing, and I thanked her while she poured me a cup of coffee. After a while, I drank the coffee, savoring its warmth and aroma. After breakfast, Martha and I set out to dig potatoes. The potatoes were large this year, and the crop looked promising. I started digging, and Martha started picking them and putting them in crates. She was built like an athlete, with strong arms and a confident posture. As she bent over to pick the potatoes, I looked at her, admiring her physique. Soon she noticed my gaze and smiled, looking into my eyes knowingly. I was embarrassed and quickly looked away, focusing on my work. I tried not to look in her direction, but it was difficult as my eyes seemed to be on their own. Some time passed, and we had collected quite a few crates of potatoes. We had to take the crates of potatoes down into the cellar, where it was cool and a little damp. There was a distinct earthy smell in the cellar, and the shelves were stacked with jars of preserves and pickles. After we finished stacking the potatoes, Martha said she would go make dinner. By the time it started to get dark, I was feeling tired. The physical labor had taken its toll and my muscles were aching. Back in the house, I took a shower to let the warm water soothe my aching body, then went to my room to lie down on the couch. The room was cozy, with a large window overlooking the garden. Soon Martha called out to me, telling me that dinner was ready. I made my way to the kitchen and sat down at the table. Martha asked what I wanted to drink and poured something dark red into our glasses. It was a rich, full-bodied wine she had brought especially for the occasion. We drank a glass each, then another, and warmth spilled over my chest. We had a good dinner of baked chicken, potatoes, and fresh salad. The conversation flowed easily, and soon the bottle was empty. I was already feeling warmed up and wanted more. Martha said, "One more drink, and then to bed." I agreed, drank another shot, and went to my room to lie down on the bed. However, I didn't feel like sleeping. The wine made me restless, and I stared at the ceiling. After a while, I was thirsty, so I went to the kitchen. The house was quiet, and the only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. I took mineral water out of the refrigerator, poured it into a glass, and sat down at the table thinking. A few minutes later, Martha came into the kitchen. She thought I was asleep, and her eyes widened slightly when she saw me. She was wearing a thin nightgown, the fabric hugging her curves, and as she approached, I couldn't help but notice her figure. A thought flashed through my mind. Martha was a slender woman. She noticed my gaze and, as if on purpose, came closer to me and said she was thirsty too. I poured her some mineral water and she took a sip, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of the glass. At that moment, my mind couldn't take it anymore. My hands reached for her, and I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her to me. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes searching mine, and then she let herself relax into my embrace. Before I knew it, Martha was sitting on my lap. She tried to get up but couldn't, and then everything unfolded as you might expect. The night was filled with tension and unspoken words. There was something undeniably magnetic between us, something that built up throughout the day. The intimacy, the shared labor, the wine, it all led to a moment when we both crossed a line we could never cross again. And yet in that moment, everything seemed the most natural thing in the world.